Good morning, good afternoon, bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to today's presentation, All My Relations Teachings, Relationships and Connections Between Indigenous Peoples and Newcomers. Before we begin our presentation today, we would like to begin with an acknowledgement that N4 is hosted at CHEO, which is located in Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa is built on the unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory, and the peoples of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation have lived on this territory for millennia, and we honor the land that we get to live, work, and play on. We also honor all First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples, and their valuable past and present contributions to this land. Their cultures and presence have nurtured and continue to nurture this land. My name is Andrew Tolmeyer. I'm N4's Education Coordinator. I will be hosting and moderating today's learnings that Mount Carmel Clinic is sharing with us today, which we are grateful for. I'm here with my colleague and co-host Colleen Drake, N4's Project Engagement Coordinator, who will be monitoring the Q&A box today. I'm now pleased to introduce you to today's presenters. I'm going to be passing the virtual podium over to our speakers to provide a quick introduction of themselves. I will first pass this over to Deborah McGuetch.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for being here. I'm so honored on the invitation for us to speak a little bit about the work that we do here on Treaty 1 territory in Winnipeg, Manitoba. My name is, people know me as Deborah. That's my more family name. My spirit name is Golden Harvest Moon Medicine Woman, and that's a name I received from Elder May Louise Campbell. And that is one that directs my life now and directs my work. I'm currently one of the elders in residence here. I work with Elder May Louise on a daily basis here at Mount Carmel Clinic, and I've been here for about 3 years now. So my job here is to work as a knowledge holder and to work at indigenizing our ways of being here at the clinic, which is a pretty big job and one probably won't be finished in my lifetime, but one that I'm honored to do. Thank you much.
And we'll pass it over to Catherine. Feel free to unmute and turn on your video, Catherine.
Sorry.
It's all right.
Thank you. Okay, my name is Catherine Biaya, originally from the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm a community health facilitator here at Mount Carmel Clinics since 2010. So I'm very delighted and privileged to be with you in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, we have Winifred Vodampar. Oh, yeah, you're muted, Winifred.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, my name is Winifred Vogamore, and I am the clinical social worker at the Mount Carmel Clinic, and I am also a newcomer immigrant, and my role here is to provide counseling to newcomer communities, especially, and also to support them and to help them in different ways. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Winifred, Catherine, and Deborah. First, we'll just jump into some quick housekeeping before we get into today's session. Today's session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our N4 platform within the next week or so, and we'll share this with you as soon as it becomes available. Should there be any technical issues during this session, we will inform you with details for an alternate makeup session. And as well, before we begin the event, I would like to take a moment to introduce you to our platform features to help enhance your participation experience. Throughout today's session, we invite you to write your questions in the Q&A window. We know that sometimes many of you might have the same question or be interested in a particular response. We have provided to you today the option to upvote questions. Please upvote questions you're interested in hearing the answer to, and we will prioritize which ones we ask the speakers first. And so with that said, let's jump right into today's presentation. I will pass the virtual podium over to our speakers. Feel free to take it away.
Thank you. So I just want to say, again, welcome to everyone. Our presentation this morning is, or this afternoon, is really about the teachings of all my relations, and that teaching we'll speak a little bit about in just a moment. But it's really we're using that way of thinking and being to build connections between our new immigrant and refugee relatives that we work with, and build those relationships between them and the Indigenous relatives that we work with here too. So it's really bridging and finding commonalities that we can build upon and to build relationships upon. Do you want to add anything? Oh.
No, it's okay.
Okay, we can go to the next slide, Andrew. Thank you. So I think we've already introduced ourselves. The only thing I would add to my intro is that I'm from the Red River Settlement and the Red River Métis Nation here in Winnipeg, Manitoba, and I just wanted to acknowledge my heritage and where I come from. So, watch. So, Mama, you're up next.
Yeah, again, thank you very much. We will do our land acknowledgement because it's very important for us as non-Indigenous community. The land acknowledgement is a very powerful way of showing respect and honoring the Indigenous people as the first people at the Turtle Island. Then it's a simple way of resisting the erasure of the people to forget that the Indigenous history and working toward honoring and inviting the truth. So we at Mount Carmel Clinic, we acknowledge that we are on Treaty 1 territory, the traditional gathering place of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene people, and the traditional homeland of the Métis people. So every time that we acknowledge this truth, we have an opportunity, each and every one of us, to reflect on what we do and what we can do to make wherever we are, it can be in Ontario, Manitoba, Quebec, all the provinces in Canada, to make it a better place for everyone who lives wherever they live. So thank you very much. That is our land acknowledgement.
Thank you, Mama.
You're welcome.
So usually we start our meetings, we start our presentations, we start everything, usually our days, with a smudging ceremony. And a smudging ceremony for us is in this territory and at this place is about starting in a good way. And so usually you'll see in the photo that there is sage that is burning there. And so I'm going to do a smudging ceremony to begin this presentation in a good way. And I'm using sage, and we'll talk a little bit more about sage as we go through the presentation. But sage is one of our medicines that we use in the smudge bowl. We also use tobacco, sweetgrass, and cedar. And so there's the four: tobacco, sweetgrass, cedar, and sage. And we'll use any one of those, or sometimes we use a combination of those. And I put a little bit of tobacco in my bowl just as a sign of respect for the process, because we never ask for anything without giving something in return. So my gift for the ask is some tobacco, and so I'm going to burn some tobacco. I will smudge myself, and then I will present the smudge to you on screen. And if you so feel inclined, if you want to smudge, please smudge with me. So I'm going to light the sage, which looks like this, and you'll see it again further on in the presentation. And we light it, and it just kind of smolders and burns. And I smudge my head to cleanse my aura and my energy. I smudge my eyes so that I can see the good in all people and see clearly the visions that I need to see. I smudge my ears when I'm not wearing these. And I'll smudge my speakers so that I can hear the people's truths, and so that I can be empathetic. Sorry, my lights go off when I'm not moving. I smudge my mouth so that my breath only speaks good words and kind words of others. I smudge my heart so it remains open to all people and all things. I smudge my stomach, my gut, so because that's where my spirit lives, and that's what tells me what's good for me in my life. I smudge my knees because I got arthritis, and I often smudge my feet so that it reminds me to walk softly on Mother Earth and to take care of her in a good way. So this is the way that we generally start our day. It just helps us to be present in the moment. It also works as a portal to open the door to a more spirit presence, so that we're working from our heart and spirit and not just our minds. So now I'm going to offer you the smudge, and I'll encourage you to smudge with us. Miigwech, thank you for sharing that with us. It's a way of just being still and being quiet for a moment so that we can prepare and come to the table or come to the meeting or even start our day in the best way possible. Miigwech. So we can go to the next slide.
Yeah, so the agenda of today's webinar is this one. So we already have an introduction, and we just now had smudging ceremony, and we had land acknowledgement. So we're going to continue with goals and the multi-camera clinic, who we are, and the community awareness program, and medicine with teachings. And we continue with all my relation and land-based concept. Then we end up with questions and answer. So let's go to the next slide. And the purpose of this webinar is to learn about Montgomery Clinic, what we do, who we are. So is to explore Indigenous ways of being, doing, and knowing as a holistic framework for program and community engagement. It is to learn about the Indigenous spiritual concept of all my relations and land-based learning and programming. It is about promote mutual acceptance and greater cultural awareness and collaboration between Indigenous and immigrant relatives. To create a greater understanding of the diverse issues that impact the emotional and mental well-being of Indigenous and immigrant individuals, families, and communities. Let's go to next slide, and I can pass over to Mama Kati.
Thank you, Winnie. I'm going to talk briefly where do we come from as an organization and who people we serve. Just briefly, because we want to have time to talk about that Aunt Deb teaching and having some personal experiences and the impact. So where does Newcomers come from? It's the first and longest running community health center. And the coming year, 2026, we will celebrate 100 years anniversary.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, I'm so excited.
Mm-hmm.
So we provide a wide range of health services in order to address all aspects of a person's well-being. So including access to quality health care, community resources, and family support, child care, mental health support, cultural opportunities, and much more. We are a multidisciplinary family where we are Indigenous Elders, knowledge holders, community outreach, worker, ECE worker, doctors, nurses, social worker, X-ray tech, lab tech, dentist, pharmacy, community volunteer, HR, admin, finance team. So we serve people who identify as immigrant and refugee. And
You can change yeah, thank you, Andrew.
Okay, thanks. So we serve people who identify as an immigrant and a refugee and who have been living in Canada for less than 2 years. And that program is funded by Immigration Citizenship Canada, where myself and Winnie are part of. So we serve Indigenous family and individually, and they are the majority of people that we are serving. We serve people with sexual and reproductive health needs, folks from the TS-LGBTQ+ community, people experiencing homelessness, mental health condition, and people who use with substance use disorder and harm reduction sites. So people who need, we want them to use the substance in a healthy way. So we provide pipe, we provide bubble, we provide so people cannot find all those tools on the street and prevent disease transmission. So that's who we serve and that's who we are. And I'm gonna pass it to Aunt Deb, who will start the medicine wheel teaching.
Okay, miigwech. Thank you, Catherine.
You're welcome.
I think why we thought this was important to bring forward is because Medicine Wheel teachings provide us a structure to create programming and our way of working in a much more holistic way. So you'll see from the symbols here that it represents first. First I want to say Medicine Wheel teachings have been around for thousands of years. And they exist in many Indigenous communities, but more specific here in the North and South Americas. And they're a way of organizing and creating a way of understanding, a better way of understanding of things that are not tangible or things that are unseen. So it allows us to organize it in a way where it explains things a little bit easier. And it's circular. You will see that most of the things that we do in Indigenous ways are circular. Our sharing circles are circular. Our round dances are circular. Most of our ceremonies are done in circle. When we use the sweat lodge ceremony, we go into the sweat lodge. It's in a circle. So much of our teachings are in a circular way. And the reason that is because we were replicating what we saw traditionally when our people, before contact, before anybody else was here, we didn't have books, we didn't have written, plans or reports or any of that sort. So how did we figure out what to do in life was that we were very connected to the land. And so we watched, we were often very still, and we were taught to listen and to observe, and not so much talking, but more observing and listening. And so how we learned was by watching the animals. How we learned was watching the star world and the sky. So we knew that the sun and the moon were also circular. We knew that when we watched the water, when the water was spinning down into a hole, we knew that that was circular. So for us, we knew that the circle was a very important way. And in our lodges, we also know that it creates equality and equity, in that everybody's a teacher and a learner in the circle. There's no hierarchy there. Everybody has something to learn from each other. And so we use those kinds of teachings to also create our programming, where we provide circles for people to sit together and learn from each other, and to be able to tell their stories. So I think that that's really important. The medicine wheel, you'll see, is divided into 4 quadrants. The important one is to know that each person is not one-dimensional, that they have 4 aspects of their human nature. So they have spirit, they have emotion, they have physical presence, and then they also have mental capacity that they walk with every day. And so for us, when we're doing programming and when we're thinking about how we help here, we have to remember everything that we create has to also have a spirit component to it, because we are spirit people. Like it or not, we walk with spirit, and when we are born into spirit. And so for instance, one of the programs that we do here, we incorporate spiritual ceremony into the program. So we begin with a smudging ceremony. We begin with drumming and singing. We begin with sharing circle. So we replicate the symbols that you're seeing in front of you into the programming that we're doing. And we know from the people that we're working, there are teachers, and they tell us that that's what works for them. They tell us that that's meaningful for them, and that they value that way of being. So that's why we do it, because they're telling us that it's effective, and it's something that helps them in terms of their own healing and spirituality. And then we also have to build in an emotional component. Is there a place for them to share and to be supported when they're connecting to their bodies and connecting to the emotions that they might be feeling? Most of our folks that we're seeing here come from the Indigenous communities, where we know, most people know about colonization, residential schools, the 60s scoop. So there's a lot of intergenerational trauma that our people are walking with every day. And so we have to allow space to be able to capture that, to support that. And the same goes for our immigrant families when they're coming in. They've left their land, but there might have been trauma and war and things that they need to be supported for. So the emotional component of how we do things is very, very important. Of course, the physicality is also important. Do they have a place to stay? Are they protected? Do they have food to eat? I mean, those are all things that we need to think about too when we're helping our folks here. And then the mental piece of it is about learning. It's about, for immigrants, it's about learning the processes and the structures here. For Indigenous people, sometimes it's about learning about their own histories. Not all Indigenous people know about the colonization process or the systems that sometimes oppress them. And so those are things that they need to learn about so that they can navigate those things in a more wholesome way. So those are just some of the concepts that can be reflected on that medicine wheel. Those are the 4 important ones. You'll also see that the 4 colors are on there, the yellow, red, black, and white, and those represent the 4 races that and you'll see in the middle it's about balance and it's about harmony. And until we're in harmony with all people, then none of us is going to have peaceful life. So that's important for us to remember, that we all need equal power, control of our lives so that we can use the volition and so that we can reach the potential in our own lives. Also, you'll see that I've included the child, youth, adult, and elder phases of our life. Though that's something that I use on a regular basis to create programming for Mount Carmel Clinic and other community work that I do. And that's a whole other teaching, but I don't know that we'll have the time to do all that. And then I've got the Sacred Tree, and I've got some of those resources listed at the end if you want to take a look at. That's a really good book. It represents a sort of universal teachings from North America that you might find helpful. And so that you'll see it's protection, nutrition, growth and learning in the West, and then wholeness in the North. So the medicine wheel is created with the 4 cardinal directions. I don't know if I've said that or not. So east, where the yellow is, and east is yellow for me because that's where the sun rises. That's where all things begin, our lives begin. And so this can also symbolize newness and rebirth in projects and in communities and families. And so it's sort of a broader teaching that can be applied to many different things. And so the east is in the yellow. The red symbolizes the south, and it's the emotional. If you think about the youth sit there. So if you can think about how, youth come and they're full of energy and they want to learn, those are things that can also produce emotion. And then the physical is in the black section, and that's in the West. And then the white is the northern direction, and we say that that's the winter of our lives. So I'm in the winter of my life. I'm 66, so I'm in my elder years, and so there's teachings around that whole quadrant. Again, we won't have time for all of those teachings, but know that if they're on here, then there's teachings that are supporting that. And then the last is the circle of courage. I always use that, and that's about creating a sense of belonging in the east direction. Mastery is allowing, especially with youth, is creating the opportunities for folks to learn, to create skills for themselves. We do that on a weekly basis here with Indigenous women. And then in the physical space, it's a place for independence. Once you learn and you gain some skills, then providing an opportunity for folks to use those skills in the community or with each other or in a mentorship program, something like that. And then again, in the winter, in the north, then in the circle of courage, then it's a time for generosity. It's a time for giving back. And it's really important for folks to have that opportunity to give back to their community or to their families or to Mount Carmel Clinic. For some folks, we deal with a lot of folks who are homeless here, and so their opportunity to give back and to be able to be generous is very limited. So if we can provide that here, and I know that Mama Cat and Winnie do that often too, they have those opportunities for immigrants to be able to give back and to start feeling purposeful in their communities and at Mount Carmel Clinic as well. Would you add anything, Catherine or Winnie?
Not really for the moment, but the time will come when we can add something. I can add something.
Okay. So you'll see that what I'm telling you is just a very small snippet of what Medicine Wheel Teachings is about. But I just wanted you to see it and know it so that you realize that how we're organizing our programming is really based on something that's been around for a long time, and so we trust it. We trust that our traditional people knew what to do before anybody else was here on Turtle Island, and so we trust those ways, and those are ways that we're trying to reuse and reclaim as a form of kind of resurgence of our ways of being. So. And also, you'll notice in the presentation, we've also kind of changed our language. We don't use language of a Western or mainstream way. Instead of referring to our relatives as clients, we do call them relatives because they are. I see them as my brothers and sisters and my aunties and uncles, and so we see them in a different way. And I think that you work in a different way when you change your language. And so we try to change the language to reflect that, to reflect more of a feeling of family. And that creates that sense of belonging again that we talked about. And I think that's something that we're doing throughout the clinic, not just in our programs at Community Wellness, but also throughout the clinic. So those are things that we work for. We can go to the next slide. So this is a video that we're going to play. This kind of is a beautiful video, I think, of one of the activities that we do where we are connected to land, and that we're working with both Indigenous and immigrant families. And then we'll talk more about it after you've seen it.
My name is Deborah, and I'm one of the elders in residence here in Newcomers Clinic. When we went to Beaudry Park, we went outside of the city to connect to land and to learn the teachings of the land through medicine picking and what we picked was sage. And sage is a healing medicine that's used by Indigenous people to connect to spirit, to cleanse their auras, their emotional space, their physical space, and to bring them well-being and balance. It's a sacred process, right? So it's not something for people to just say, okay, this is what you do, this is how you do it. It's more of I mean, you were there, you saw the beauty of it and the spirituality of it, the ceremony of it. It's not necessarily a process or there's no rules around it in that way. There's natural laws that we practice, but that comes from our connection to the land. So it's really being at one with the plants, right? It's really being like you would be sitting with your cousin or your auntie or your mom or your dad. To me, it's the same thing. We're sitting with our relatives, and so it's a different sense. You know, it's a spiritual sense. So for me, it's really a connection to land. It's a reconnection to our spirit way of being and as part of our humanness. And we're so disconnected because we're just connected to social media and TV and those kinds of things. We're not often present for those kinds of activities. So getting out to the land and not having our phones, because people tried to use phones, I don't know if you remember that, not being connected to their phone was really foreign. And I could see people get uncomfortable because they're not able to have their phone on. So what we're trying to do is cut that so that they will have a chance then to become connected to the land. And you would see, like, when they had their dinner and their lunch together, it was really a time for we could talk to each other, and they were really having some strong connections, not only with us, but from, with other people that were there. So it's more conducive to relationship building with other people that were there, but also with the plants and the anything else that was going on, the butterflies or the bugs or those kinds of things. That there's more to the world than what's just before our eyes in the city, or what we're connected to all the time, which is our phones. So going back to the land and picking medicines is a very sort of natural way to get reconnected to our plant relatives, because it's a whole world that our people knew traditionally. They knew the plant world, and so I think that's what we're missing now, and so that's what we're trying to recreate and recreate those opportunities for folks to belong to that and to get a sense of that in a real tangible way, right? To feel the medicines, to smell it, to go to be in ceremony, to ask permission first for us to cut the plant, and then passing the tobacco down, and respect. It's a huge respect. And now we brought them back and we clean them, and we'll use them for practice here with each other. Like I use them in practice, but also with people that come in here that we help. We use them with them. So that's the purpose, and so it's multi-level. Like there's no one purpose. There's many purposes to create the relationship with the plant world, and with each other, to create a connection to food and land, and it was wonderful that there were farmers' fields there, and the sun, be connected to the sun, and the tree. We even paid tribute to the tree that provides the protection in so many ways. So for me, it's about all that, rather than just the one thing of picking. It's broad. Yeah. All my relations, that's what we usually say. And it includes all of that. And the water, yeah.
We can go to the next slide, Tom. Thank you. Thank you for the video. It brings back fond memories of being connected to the land. And when I was watching that, I was thinking about, the sense of land ownership that Indigenous people are often fighting for. Because in our belief system, we don't own the land. It doesn't belong to us. We are only, we belong to the land doesn't belong to us, if that makes sense. And so we only take what we need. Our people have always done that. I don't think that's reflected in today's time, where people are exploiting the land, exploiting the water, those types of things. And that's a big worry for our elders, wondering if there's going to be, enough water for everybody. If that, we're supposed to be the caretakers of Mother Earth. And so when we see fracking, and when we see, pipelines and those kinds of things that are hurting the land, it hurts us from a different level. It hurts us from a spirit level, from a heart level. It's not just about, the thought process of what that means. It's about, because we are akin to land. That is our relation. So it would be like it happening to our relatives, to our mother or to our auntie, or when things happen like that, it's a different sense of knowing. But it's also a different sense of knowing when we can celebrate the land and when we're connected to the land. So, from my teachings from Elder May Louise Campbell, and from many of the teachings. And what I'm sharing with you today is an accumulation of all the teachings that I've received over the last 40 years of sitting with different elders and sitting with different aunties and mentors and people who lived on the land and were connected to the land. There were teachings I got in the Sweat Lodge ceremony and many other ceremonies that I've been part of. So these are something that are intrinsic to who I am in terms of my identity and in terms of my heritage here on Turtle Island. So we have a different relationship. We have a different sense of that, and I believe that it's not. We're not the only ones that feel that sense of oneness, that sense of kin with the land. And when if you in the video, there were folks that we had a time to sit for lunch, and we sat under a tree and we were telling stories together. And many of the stories that they were talking about were many of the stories that we talked about, stories of being connected to the land, stories of eating on the land with their families in their own countries. So we had many commonalities. And I think that when we're connected to the land, when our feet are on the grass, on the soil, that there's a sense of groundedness, and there's a sense of allowing yourself to be vulnerable in that kind of space. It kind of grounds you and gives you a sense of safety. So it's a different kind of way of being together. And I think that your relationship connection is a much more profound connection than it would be if we were sitting in a building or if we were sitting, with a table between us. So it's a different way of doing things that allows us to connect to our spirit, to our emotions, to feel things in our body, and to then be able to share our concepts and our thoughts with each other. It's that medicine wheel kind of teaching. So the All My Relations for us as Indigenous people is about the trees. When I come to work in the morning, I say good morning to the trees. They're my cousins, and I say good morning, cousins. When I go out in my yard, I say good morning to my cousins, the flowers, the grass. I say good morning, Grandmother Moon. I say good morning to Grandfather Sun. I am related to everything in the universe, including all my relations who are new immigrants, refugees, and all the other First Nations and Métis and Inuit relatives that I have. I am connected to everything and everybody. The air I breathe, the oxygen that I breathe comes from my tree cousins. I guess I'm getting close to the time, I see. So the pictures are resembling all of the animals that teach us. The wolf teaches us about humility. The bear teaches us about courage. These are huge teachings that would take us days for us to bring forward. The bison is a sign of the Métis and a sign of respect. The eagle teaches us about love. And then I've already mentioned the sun and the moon. And then our turtle teaches us about the truth, about finding the truth in our own lives, but also honoring and respecting the truth in others and in communities. And then it also resembles the water, which we need to protect. So as women and as water carriers, that's our role here, is to protect the water. And then the green grasses and the trees, these are all my relations. These are, I can't do anything in my work, in my life, without considering how it will affect those relatives. So it's not just about the human relatives, it's also about the other relatives that we can't live without. You can't live without trees, and you can't live without oxygen, and you can't live without the water. You can't live without the animals that we have, and the crawlers and the swimmers and all of those things play a role, and they're just as important in our world as we are. And so we have to remember that. Those are the teachings that we walk with every day. And when I'm doing programming, those relatives are always in my mind's eye. And they help us. They help us with our 7 sacred teachings to live in a good way. And so I'm going to stop there because I could go on and on forever, so I won't.
You're muted, Catherine.
Thank you, Ante, for this deep and beautiful teaching that we, Winnie and I, have been the privilege to have it every day. Sometimes at lunchtime or break time, we go to the multicultural wellness room where Auntie, they write every month what are the teaching, and it helps us to grow and understand. The program of my relationship have impacted all of us, not only our, as Aunt Deb said, we don't call them client, our relationship, our relative, but also us as a service provider, because it fosters a safe space and a dialogue and break the stereotype, how newcomers thought about Indigenous people and how Indigenous people thought about newcomer. There is a lot of similarities, and then we don't focus on the differences, but we grab the similarities and we grow and we reconnect, we build our own story that we have forgotten, like sitting and eating under a tree, and there is a fire aside, and then storytelling. And I remember when I was a young girl, we were going to my mom's village, and they were fishing together. And then after catching the fish, they would cook the fish on the fire, and then everybody will eat at the same place. And then they will not catch all the fishes that come to their eyes. They will put back other fish in the water. So there is reproduction. So honoring those, and sometimes with the war where we came from, running from there, and then we forget, and then we come here, we reconnect again with the land, we reconnect again with those, our parents, our grandma, what they were doing, and we feel now at home, we feel the sense of belonging. We are no more stranger, but a stranger finding a home. So it's so powerful. And as Aunt Deb said, we are going out of time, but this is a program that I believe after this webinar, other organizations will find a way to see how to connect deeply with all our relation with joy, and learn and grow up together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So we've got some references here for you. Sacred Tree is one that I use all the time. It's kind of got those universal teachings. There's no one way in Indigenous ways of being. There are, hundreds and hundreds of nations, and they all have their own way of doing things. So if you're working with an Indigenous community, you need to ask the elders how they do things. And then reclaiming youth is one I saw Dr. Martin Brokenlake come and he explained that. I think that's one, especially if you're working with youth, it's wonderful. And then the report that we've just shared was a report that was done here in Winnipeg that has a lot of really good information and resource for you. It can change. So I'm going to leave you with a quote from one of my most favorite Indigenous authors. He's got several of them out, but this one comes from his Embers meditations from 2016. So he says, a drenching, nourishing rain in the mountains, the beat of it on the roof, its glimmer as it courses off the eaves, the tears of Mother Earth, blessing everything and empowering life. Lift your face to it and feel her energy. She is in you. She is in me. We are kin. Wow, that really impacts me. So thank you. Thank you for listening and for honoring us so that we could bring our way of working to you, and hopefully that you find something in it that that you find valuable, that you find might work for you. And just happy to sit with you today. Miigwech. Winnie and Catherine, any last words?
Yeah, the same as we said, we say miigwech, merci, thank you. And we hope that we will be always in touch. If you need us, we are available to provide any insight that you want from us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for hosting us and for being audience of this web. And yeah, we are here also to provide the guidance and answer all the questions that you might have if you want also to do similar thing in order to promote the relationship between Indigenous and the newcomer. Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you, Winnie. And also, Andrew, thank you for all your help and guidance through this process.
Well, thank you, and thank you, and Miigwech as well, for sharing the teachings and the lessons that you've shared with our audience today as well, and as well as the individuals that visit the clinic that have been fortunate to learn from yourselves as well. We do have a couple questions. I guess the first one with regards to how can newcomers get to know you and learn more about the work at Mount Carmel Clinic? Is it easy to meet local Indigenous people as well in their own areas and be able to work with them? Without speaking for others, of course. I mean,
yeah, I can't speak for others, but I know at Mount Carmel Clinic they've made a commitment to work with Indigenous folks. At one time we had about 6 elders and knowledge keepers here. I call myself Auntie. That's what they call. Mama Cat calls herself Mama. Auntie is for me is a Métis way of being a helper. It's somebody who you go to who you need help from. So I prefer Auntie. I prefer. I don't really like the hierarchical kind of titles that folks have. Not that they're not important to some, but for us that doesn't work well. They're much more inclined to approach you if your name is Auntie, and so. That's what I use. I think that, your communities are open to being asked. So if you're in Ontario, I know lots of elders there that are doing this kind of work, perhaps not with newcomers, but I know that they're open to teaching and going to speak, at different conferences, that kind of thing. Here, you can always call us here at Mount Carmel Clinic. We have lots of partnerships that we work with different people. So, yeah, we're happy to help if you want some help, depending on what that help is. I'm also seeing this. What do you think the most important things newcomers need to understand about Indigenous peoples and history is that, for us, it's understanding the history and understanding the position that people have in terms of that history, and then trying to create equitable ways of working together so that we're walking side by side, that we're not taking over. That's a whole teaching session. We could do a whole other workshop on that. But thank you for the question.
Our other question here is similar to the other one with getting to know the communities. This is coming from a nurse who trains healthcare providers that are internationally educated nurses, serving from all backgrounds, including Indigenous relatives. How can they foster the sense of cohesion with others and the environment in the way to work with Indigenous teachings from someone that isn't Indigenous?
Yeah. I don't know if Catherine or Winnie has something they want to say. Like what I think about when you're asking me that question is, here we have many non-Indigenous nurses and doctors and professionals that work here as well. What we always say is it begins with you. And so you have to do your own work before you're going to be able to help others. And when I say do your own work, it's about looking at our own positions, our own positionality in the workplace of the work you're doing. It's looking at your own biases, your own prejudices, looking at unconscious bias, looking at do you really feel a kinship with the people that you're working with? And for some folks, they've never, that's a new concept for them. So it takes time to work on that and to first acknowledge it, and then to be able to connect to the land in that way, and to get some more education. There's some really good books out there. I always, if you're non-Indigenous, I always say, you know, read Robin DiAngelo's White Fragility. That's a good book. Again, The Sacred Tree is a good book to just get some idea. You need to know the history of Indigenous people in order to be able to work with them in a good way. And then comes the questions of how do I do it in a way that allows me to be a good ally. And there's lots of ways. Again, that could be 10 webinars about that.
So excellent. Thank you for sharing the response. I think we have time for just one more question.
Okay.
With respect to the teachings, the programming, the lessons that you share at Mount Carmel Clinic, how do you evaluate your programming or outcomes on newcomer Indigenous relations and the potential impact that it's had?
Well, I'll let Catherine and Winnie talk about the newcomers, but for Indigenous relations, I'll go to the teachings of Elder May Louise, who always says that the people we're working for are our teachers. It's not about us, it's about them. And if you ask them the questions, or if they tell you, if you create safety within your group, within your program, then you're allowing, we often use sharing circles, and they're quite honest, and they'll tell us when things aren't working for us. And so if they're not working for them, then we try and change it if we have the capacity to do that, and the power to do that. So, and Winnie and Catherine, what would you say to that?
I will say also, you know, we build a relationship. We build a safe space where they feel respected, and they feel also honored. What Auntie Deb said, how do you think about the relation you have with them? Are you thinking in a position of being higher than them? So that safe space in a cycle, then we can ask a random question. They will not know that we are doing an evaluation. It's just a conversation where we write, we ask questions, and then we observe, and then we take notes. And we see how positive it is. Because with newcomer, mostly when you ask them kind of evaluation, normal evaluation, they will say just yes, yes, agree, agree, agree. So they will not really say what they think. So we use the informal way of asking questions within the sharing cycle, and we take notes. And so that's how we know that the program is very need it, and then they enjoy it.
Thank you, Catherine. Winnie?
From like what newcomer experience when they participate in All My Relation program, so they really enjoy to be on the land, as most of them, they have been in the refugee camp, and the environment here is different. So mostly they live in the apartment. So when they go to the land-based, and they have a land-based teaching and the All My Relations teaching, so they feel like they are, they belong. They are in their own environment where they used to be, and they really connect well with themselves, and they also connect with our relatives, and always they wanted to participate more. They will come and ask when we have a next programming, and most of them even they come to request sage medicine, because they say back home we used to use this medicine and we didn't know that it exists here. Now we are happy. We are again connected to our medicines, and then they can get medicine and they can use, and they can, it is a way of healing. So because they have been through so many traumas, and then they heal, and when they heal, that is the way also to have a good relationship with our relatives and with other community members. Yeah, thank you.
Miigwech. I know we're strapped for time. I'm gonna beg your forgiveness, but I see a question here about colonial.
Go ahead.
How do I disrupt settler colonial cultural gaslighting in a very colonial school system and curriculum? That's not an easy one, but I think that we have to name it and we have to say it. We have to have that bare courage and to stand up and say that this is not okay and how do we change it? And if we never say anything, and it's hard, believe me. I know that usually we try and work in a group, so there's not just one of us saying it, there's many of us saying it. But it starts with leadership. Leadership has to see that that's something that needs to change. I know that here in Manitoba, there's an Indigenous arm in the provincial education system. So there's lots of, if you want to look there, there's lots of resource there and lots of examples of how you can do it. Yeah, I know it's a hard one here, even at Mount Carmel Clinic. We're indigenizing and we're trying to create those ways. But those colonial structures have been in existence for hundreds of years, and they're not easy to dismantle. And you have to dismantle one at a time. So it's a bit of work, but it can be done, and we just can't stop the work. We can't just say it's okay to continue. With ways that are oppressing people and not working for folks. Thanks for that.
Well, thank you. And thank you for the response on that. It's a big topic that we could probably have many webinars around.
Yes.
But thank you again very much. Thank you, Auntie Deb. Thank you, Mama Cat. Thank you, Winifred, for very much taking the time to participate in today's discussion. And many thanks to you, the audience, for joining with us and engaging with us today. You're very much welcome to join us again at any of our upcoming events. And if you missed any part of today's presentation or would like to watch this session again, it has been recorded, and we will be posting it to our N4 platform within the next week or so. Along with that, we want to continue the dialogue that the presentation has started, and we know that there's many other questions that have been asked that we haven't had time to get a chance to address, but we very much will be working with our speakers today, Deb, Catherine, and Winifred, to address them with the recording itself as well. We have also curated several resources related to today's presentation topic from the many resources in our resource toolkit, and you can find them there, and we'll link them with the on-demand version of this discussion. So if you haven't yet, please feel free to check out newcomernavigation.ca for all our resources and learning opportunities. Along with that, following the session, there will be a brief survey. We ask that you please complete the survey so that we can continuously improve and seek out new webinar content that you, our attendees, are very much interested in seeing as part of N4. And with that said, before I finally sign off, is there any final words from yourselves, Auntie Deb, Mama Cat, and Winifred?
Mama, I'm going to ask you to go first.
Yeah. Sincerely speaking, I'm so grateful that N4 is always coming back to us so we can do this presentation that touches our heart and in order other people to see and learn and do something where they are working, because I think there is a lot of stereotype and misinformation between mostly from newcomer population toward Indigenous people. So the more we are talking, the more ourselves we are learning about the Indigenous history, we will find a way to connect with them anytime we have a relative coming to our office. Can be a nurse or a doctor or outreach person. So when your bahasas is put in check, then you know how you can build the relation with someone else. So thank you very much one more time. And as I said before, we are there. If you need us, we will be there to respond.
Winnie?
Yeah, thank you. So we are grateful already to be in this webinar, and that's how change happens. So when we learn, we change. And I think from this webinar, this is a very good opportunity for everyone to learn and to practice what they have learned. And then we can have a better society where like everyone feel belonging and not discriminated against. Yeah, thank you.
I think I want to change to end just by acknowledging first that we are spirit people. We walk with spirit, and everything you do should include something with spirit. And when we work without spirit, that's when we run into trouble. When we're just operating from our headspace, from our brains and our minds, that's where we run into trouble. But we also have to include the whole, all aspects of being, no matter what we're doing, whether you're doing a webinar, whether you're doing programming, whether you're just doing a one-on-one with somebody, you have to include the holistic version of who they are, but also of who you are, and think about who you are. So that would be something that I would want folks to remember, and let's keep talking about it. Let's keep, addressing the oppression, the inequities that exist, because we know that they do. And it's only when we talk about it that we can find solutions together. All my relations, I am related to all of you. And so I see you all as my cousins and my brothers and sisters. So I'm happy to be here with you. Let's keep talking. Miigwech. Ekose Marci.
Miigwech. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you for your presentation, your lessons that you've shared today. And for those that